Listen, it's been a long time coming. I know that I mentioned months ago about a dirty dozen, meaning the city's most egregious blighted properties in the city and how we are doing a targeted approach. But on today, and thanks to the aggressive work of our code enforcement team, there has really been a significant progress relative to blight eradication and remediation across the city of New Orleans, and being very intentional about getting to every neighborhood where the needs are the greatest. So earlier this year, as you know, the code enforcement received $10 million in terms of a boost in its budget. And thanks to the hard work of the administration, being very prudent in our practices relative to managing our bottom line, managing our dollars, and of course, doing what was necessary to get even a direct allocation. This is in partnership even with the New Orleans City Council relative to budgeting for this additional boost to code enforcement. But because of it, we have just seen a 23% in terms of progress, and this is from 2022 to 2023. And what we have noticed, even as we look at where we are right now in 2023, we have seen a 20% increase in demolition. So again, using the resources wisely, but getting results on the ground. And it's because of the team and the leadership of code enforcement and that of the Office of Business and External Services. They have also collected approximately $2.6 million in fines and fees. Again, on track to exceed those numbers in 2022 as we look at where we are in 2023. Over 20% again increase there. I wanted to also just make mention and welcome officially our new Director of Code Enforcement, Mr. Anthony Davis, the real one, in my opinion. Thank you so much for your leadership in joining the team. But in October, over 2/3 of our residents voted to deny property tax exemptions to any nonprofit that owns severely blighted property throughout the city. We believe that this is, again, a step in the right direction, and with us speaking with one voice, not just the administration, but our people in this city saying that we want to do something about blight in our city and in our community. We know that it has a direct impact on our overall quality of life, public health, and of course, public safety. Over 70% of our voters also voted to establish code enforcement as an official department. So we're excited about that. And that will begin this January of 2024. So we're tooling up, gearing up for that. But all of these, again, are just huge wins for the residents of our city and, of course, for the administration who has blight as a priority. For us to, again, meet people where they are. And I can't think of a better example when you look over here at where we're about to demolish, but also the residents that came out who live adjacent to it. They matter. And immediately their quality of life will be impacted, but you'll see real progress. And I know they will not only see it, but they'll feel it as well. It does matter. But this is why, again, we have identified 12 properties, 12 blighted properties that we're calling our dirty dozen. This list, again, includes some of the largest eyesores in the city. I would call them sometimes armpits that need to be shaved. But again, we want to ensure that these deplorable conditions that our residents are living in and around, that we do something about it, that we mitigate them. So we're here, as you know, at 3418 Sullen Place, which has received an emergency demolition order November 8th. And in October, the property maintenance and demolition inspection cited nearly 30 violations. So again, this is not our first attempt, but what we've seen over and over again, we expend resources, we put code liens, but it doesn't immediately mean that the property will be back into commerce. So we just have to continue to be aggressive, and we are. We have already seen, I would say, that this work in terms of progress with 2 of our properties listed have successfully been cleaned up and brought into compliance. So again, as we highlight where the eyesores are, we're wanting to do like the stick and the carrot. We do believe that when we work with the property owner, that we show them that we're consistent and we're serious, that they also will do the right thing. That's what we hope for, and we've seen again progress in this regard. That was 2119 Washington Avenue, and I have to say, when we first scheduled this press conference, it was going to be Washington Avenue, but we saw the property owners doing the right thing, and we immediately transitioned to another location. Again, just demonstrating that we want to work with all of our folks who want to do the right thing. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Thomas Mulligan, who is my deputy CAO of the Office of Business and External Services, in which code enforcement is under his umbrella. And he'll give you a little bit more meat on the bone, and then you're going to hear from our Director of Code Enforcement, Mr. Anthony Davis. So with that, Tom, thank you so much again.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I want to say thank you for your leadership on our whole code enforcement effort. At the end of the day, to be able to accomplish these operations, whether it's demolitions, imposition of fines, working with homeowners to bring properties back into compliance, it requires resources and it requires people, and you've always supported our department, and it's been a big help. And I think that support is clearly evidenced by the results. Director Davis is going to talk a little bit more about some of the metrics related to code enforcement, but there's been an unmistakable rise in code enforcement activity in this administration, and that's evidence of the investment that's been made in the department. So really, I think I'd just like to say two things about what's going on with these dirty dozen properties, and also happy to answer any questions you have. First, I have the privilege of running the Office of Business and External Services, and it's an organization that brings together not just code enforcement, but the Historic Preservation Departments, VCC and HDLC, safety and permits, economic development, because really for all cases of blight, but especially these very large-scale, very long-standing properties, oftentimes commercial properties, it's not just a code enforcement issue. So we can enforce, we can get a dangerous building down, but the question is, what do you do next? And in order to have that ultimate resolution of a development of a property that's going to be a boon to the community, and in addition to our economic life, we need all those partners at the table. So OBES, I think, is a great organization. It was the right organization at the right time. And for all these properties, or nearly all of them, we're already deep in the process of working together across departments to get to some final resolution. And you know, another thing I'll say is that there's no one-size-fits-all to these properties when it comes to the behavior of the owners, the history, the different sensibilities involved, the problems with each individual property. Really, the only commonality is that they're prominent, they're large scale, and they've been neglected for a long time, partially because they're so difficult to develop and so difficult to find a resolution to. And you know, this administration could have done the same thing and said, well, we'll kind of levy a few fines, but not really tackle them in an aggressive and innovative way. But that's not the case. So they are difficult. We are going to work on bringing them to a resolution. As the mayor mentioned, our desire is always to work collaboratively with owners. We're not a punitive organization. Fines and fees exist only insofar as they incentivize compliance. But clearly, we're not afraid to be aggressive. We've already levied, in some cases, extremely large fines, and we'll have no hesitation in doing that in the future. But at the end of the day, the goal is work with owners, get these properties back into the community, and that's what we're committed to do.
Back on those tax rolls. It matters. Director Davis, I like that.
Good afternoon, everyone. Madam Mayor, Mr. Mulligan, thank you again. So I just wanted to provide you a brief overview of what we call the Dirty Dozen and where we are specifically with those properties. Probably the most well-known amongst all of you is Plaza Tower. We levied the largest fine that we've left against anybody earlier this year at $220,000. Well, that is still currently in litigation. And obviously, as long as it's in litigation, code enforcement will continue to follow the law and do those things that are necessary that code enforcement should be prepared to do as soon as it's out of litigation. We've also routed a brand new contract for demolition in preparation. When that does come out of litigation, that code enforcement is ready to go. So we're not waiting around to see, what the result of the litigation is going to be. We're going to be ready to go. 1031 North Claiborne, found guilty of 10 violations. We fined them almost $6,000 in penalties and fees. It's also currently in litigation. 3010 Sandra Drive, found guilty of 15 violations, fined $7,000, and is currently in litigation. And then the last one that's currently in litigation is 6700 Plaza Drive. We found them guilty of 11 violations, fined them over $3,200, and again, they're currently in litigation. When it comes to Lindy Boggs, it's got new ownership. We have been working with the new owners. We're planning to meet with them very soon to come up with a way ahead of planning actions and milestones, because they have been working with us, and likewise, as Mr. Mulligan said, we're not a punitive organization. We're looking to work with owners who are willing to do the right thing. And so the new owners appear to be headed in that direction of doing the right thing, and that's what we're certainly going to do. We're going to work with them. Arkwood Apartments and 1051 Curran Boulevard has been found guilty of 13 violations. They've been fined over $5,000. All the prior cases have been paid and abated. We are currently getting ready to open up a new administrative case to potentially impose new fines on that organization. 1108 Canal Street, commonly known as the Lowe's State Palace, has 7 violations that have been recorded, and we are awaiting hearing again to potentially impose some additional fines on that location. Canal Street Hotel at 1630 Canal Street, found guilty of 10 violations, fined $4,500, and the daily fines hearing was partially abated. But again, that is something else that we are going to re-inspect very soon, hopefully in the next week or so. And then lastly, 2025 Canal, on 19 violations that have been recorded, and we are waiting to hear from a hearing how much additional fines that we are going to impose on those locations. And then Bundy Road, obviously, it's got several owners. We've been abating that property for the past year, sending out our strike team to keep the grass cut and all of those things. We've also removed some abandoned vehicles. We've had 8,000 tires removed from the location. We're going next month to pre-bid to get a new tire contract going forward as we go into 2024. So we are still continuing to work on that location. We will manage the overgrown vegetation to the maximum extent possible. But the long-term plan for right now is to sell that site via a sheriff sale or adjudicated property for potential future housing development. And then, as the mayor previously mentioned, work is in progress at Washington Avenue and at the Park Fontaines Apartments. So as long as work is in progress, the previous problems have been abated, we will continue to work on all of the ownership. And then lastly, I would just like to say it's been an incredible year for us as far as demolitions are concerned. We're well over 130 demolitions up to date where we are with that. Again, that's a 23% increase from where we are this time last year. And we're averaging about 4 to 5 demolitions per week. So we still have some more work to do here in 2023. So we are excited about that. And it's the same thing through our lot abatement program, where we've been cutting, vegetation and grass, overgrown weeds, all of those things. Thus far to date, we've cut over 4,831 lots. With still some time to go here. We are expecting to be well north of 5,000 lots as we move toward the end of the year. But that's what we've done so far this year as a department. And again, we're excited about moving forward and have some great plans set in motion for 2024 and how we continue to attack blight for this city. Thank you all for this, and open to questions and comments at this time.
Thank you so much, Mr. Davis, Director Davis, and just another shout out to the entire team. And I see Winston Reed over there. Thank you, Winston. You have just done a yeoman's job, and we couldn't be here without you. So thank you and your team. So with that, we did want to answer any questions that you may have, and that's it. So, John.
on topic.
Starting with WWL TV.
Well, you list Plaza Tower as one of the examples. That was the subject of an Inspector General report showing that only a tiny fraction of the possible fines have been levied. It sounds like you're trying to step that up, but what does it take for the city to impose the fines that are available to put the maximum amount of pressure? That one being just one example of the fines don't match what the maximum fines could be.
Well, I think what it does provide an example of how you do have to engage the ownership of these parcels, particularly with large-scale blight like the Plaza Tower. It hasn't been there for 30 years in its condition just because it costs a lot of money to redevelop. But what has happened under this administration has been the largest fines ever, and we will continue to put pressure, not only in fine, but also in working to bring the property down, as mentioned by Director Davis, our preparation to demolish if we do have to do that.
Madam Mayor, you mind?
Yeah, no, absolutely.
And just to add to that, if you read that OIG report, it explicitly recognizes that this administration has been aggressive about that building. And my point of view is, first off, the fact that in theory you could get $2 million worth of fines doesn't mean a hearing officer is going to impose that. It's ultimately up to the hearing officer. And in code enforcement, we have to craft a requested penalty that is going to achieve the operational result, which is fix the property and bring the building back into compliance. And as Director Davis mentioned, this was, I believe, the largest fine, or one of the largest fines in code enforcement history. So the idea, I think, that it was in any way lenient doesn't hold much water, in my opinion.
But just looking at it from the point of view of the average citizen, they've seen it in a blighted state for 30 years. They see how slowly the process moves. It could be another 30 years. Now you say it's in litigation. Are you convinced that, and you say that the city is ready to demolish? That sounds like news to me. I hadn't heard that the city is that close. What can we look forward to, say, in the next 12 months for that property?
Well, I think the first thing to look forward to is this RFP hitting the streets shortly. So the demolition RFP includes two things. One, an assessment of the building, what exactly it would take to demolish it, because that's a big outstanding question. We have an idea that we really have to make sure is absolutely correct. And then secondly, the actual demolition. Now, we are assured by building ownership that they're making progress on this big, valuable, historically important building. My own view is it would be an absolute shame if it comes to demolition, but it might come to demolition, and we have to be ready for that. So I think heavy fines, that's been done. Laying the groundwork for demolition, if it comes to that, that's in the process. And as I say, read that RFP. I think that'll give people confidence that we're taking this seriously. And then, of course, we always have to follow the law. And so we'll wait for any legal judgments to come down and comport ourselves in accordance with them.
Sophie with The Advocate.
Yeah, also a question about fines. I'm wondering just what has changed that has allowed you all to increase the fines? Is it that you have, more inspectors coming in? Is it that you are using different fines that you didn't use before? And then also, is it just these 12 that you're taking this new approach to fines on, or are you sort of applying this across the board?
No, it's across the board, and there are a number of things. There have been legislative changes, including in Baton Rouge, which allow the imposition of larger fines. A part of it is a conscious decision by the administration to be more aggressive. Really in cases where we have a blighted building, it's a nuisance to the community, an owner has the resources to fix it, but he or she isn't doing it. In those cases, we do think more aggression with fines is appropriate. So that's really the answer, but it is across the department. It also is, more manpower. The department's grown by about 25%. That means more cases. We can spend more time preparing cases, be more effective in lobbying a hearing officer for a better result. So it's a range of changes.
Well, and I also would just add to that, Tom, it's amazing how folks forget that we went through a global pandemic that had an impact on operations across the board. So what's new is that we've moved out of a pandemic and we have been very successful at getting resources. One time, direct allocation to the city that allows us to do more things in a coordinated and a collaborative manner.
WDSU.
My question, there is a number of fires that have happened from blighted properties just about 2 weeks ago in the Tremaine neighborhood off of North Rocheblave. 7 people were displaced, 5 home damaged from a home that was blighted, had violations. So what do you say to the neighbors who live around these blighted properties or those who have had their homes damaged as a result of these idle properties? How do you reassure them that, you know, this is being taken care of in a timely fashion where their homes are not at risk?
Well, we reassure them by doing exactly what we're doing now, putting resources to work, fighting for resources, and putting those resources to work, understanding where our blighted properties are, working with homeowners, being very aggressively, in terms of enforcement. But it's a work in progress, and it doesn't, I think that's why it's such a priority. People who live adjacent, it has a direct impact on their daily quality of life. I've seen it and I've lived it firsthand. Finally, the blighted properties behind my home have new construction going on. But it is just a testament again to how you work with ownership, but how you push parcels back into commerce. Anything to add, Tom?
Thank you.
Thank you all. And, well, they're gonna do the demo on site still if y'all want to stay behind.
It's on topic, John. The question I have is on topic. Does that matter?
You can talk.
Madam Mayor, can I